Hello and welcome back to the Woo Woo Wasteland podcast. I am your host, Tabby, and I am back today with another episode. And today I thought it would be fun to talk about reincarnation. Because I do past life regressions, it is something that obviously has everything to do with that. So I first wanted to start out with the definition of reincarnation. So, reincarnation is the philosophical or religious belief that the non physical essence of a living being, soul or consciousness, starts a new life in a different physical body or form after biological death. It is central. It is a central tenet in Eastern traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sikhism, aiming for spiritual evolution or liberation from the cycle of rebirth. Okay, so, this is from Google, by the way. This is just the Google definition. The process, often described as a cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, frequently linked to karma, the law of cause and effect. Many traditions see it as an opportunity for spiritual growth, allowing the soul to learn lessons, settle karmic debts, and evolve through different forms. And types of reincarnation. While many believe in human to human reincarnation, some traditions like certain interpretations of Buddhism and Hinduism allow for rebirth in different realms, including animal or spirit form. So, the goal is usually to end the cycle through enlightenment, achieving liberation or unity with the divine. And so, I would say, I believe that we reincarnate on many different planets in many different forms. I myself have gone into a life where I was just grass, just a big blade of grass on earth here. It was really interesting. There's a purpose to every life you live. Um and what you get out of it is going to be different for each person, even if you live the same life. It could be similar, but it's always going to be colored through the lens of how you are perceiving your life you're living in now through your own perspective, because we are different people. We are part of the same whole, but we have a different consciousness here right now. And that is colored by, you know, all the different things, how we are raised, how, first of all, our astrology coming into this life, right? Then how we're raised, the faith, the religious beliefs, the spiritual beliefs, the dogma, you know, the control you're put under or maybe not put under, the pressure that's put on you or not put on you. I mean, our parents, our grandparents, our ancestors, all of this stuff, I think kind of plays into a little bit how we express ourselves and how we live and how we see the world. So, we all will see a life, and you're going to get out of that what you need to see. So, let's see. Reincarnation stories. Absolutely loved them when I was growing up. On Unsolved Mysteries, they had a couple episodes here and there where they had kids on there that had like seen their past lives, and they could describe really specific things. This fascinated me and I was so jealous as a kid. I was like, I want to know my past life because even as a young kid, I just knew like this can't be it, right? This can't be it. We don't just come here for this and that is absolutely it. There's more to everything. And it more than what church tells us to, because I just did not connect with the religion that I went to a non-denominational church. Well, before that I went to I don't even know. I went to a Baptist church before. I've gone to several different types of churches. And like at our non-denominational church we went to, they would just teach us about different religions. And that one would have probably been the closest that I felt to not not feeling so bogged down by all of the rules and It was like, you have to live life this way and you have to do all of these things. Otherwise, you aren't good enough or godly enough or whatever. And I absolutely hated when they would judge like homosexuals or people who didn't want to get married and have kids, people who didn't want to get married and just live with their partner. The whole thing was so disgusting to me. I just chose not to do that with my kids. And that's my personal belief. People can believe whatever they want, and that's cool. I just am under the ideal that if you have to hate someone in order to be closer to God, then you're not. You're just not. So it sounds more like a cult than a religion, and that's my thought on it. But so let's get back into different types of reincarnation. So you can come as uh you know elements of the earth, like the ground, the trees, the grass, flowers. You could come as like bugs, ants, worms, mosquitoes, spiders, whatever. You could come as animals of, different, like a fox or a dog or a cat or whatever. You could come as a sea animal, like a dolphin or a whale or a sea turtle. You could come as water. You, I actually, my very first hypnosis session, technically my second. The first one I did a session with my grandma, and she's hard of hearing, so it was really hard. But I did get her into hypnosis, but my kids came in and interrupted our session. But the first real session I did where everything went smoothly was a classmate, and she went into a life where she was the atmosphere around the earth. And that was really cool. It was so much just like my experience with when I was grass. It's just you're individual, but you're also just so connected to the whole. So all of the grass is connected, right? It's almost as one, but you are a little individual strand in that, but you felt so interconnected with the rest of it. And it was so supportive and just loving. It was crazy the amount of love you feel just being a blade of grass. So, and that's how the girl described the being the atmosphere. It was so important, such an important job that you don't think about it all the time, but it is so interconnected with all the other ones. And sometimes you need to see that to remember how interconnected we all really are, even though we are an individual. So that was kind of the purpose of that. But I remember seeing the video of this kid he remembered all of these airplanes and stuff from like the time of Pearl Harbor. And I believe he died in Pearl Harbor. It was so fascinating. He knew all of these crazy details, little things that your average person wouldn't know. And he was so young, he shouldn't have been able to know it. And he knew the name, his own name. I believe he had the same name too, which is really coincidental and kind of wild. But it's so cool that he could remember his name. They say kids are more, especially when they're young, they remember those past lives easier because they aren't quite jaded and they're really still super connected to the spirit realm, which is why I think a lot of kids are scared. They go through that period when they're young because they see things that adults don't and they hear things adults don't. And they're scared because they're not taught how to handle that kind of stuff, right? Um and normally parents just, no, you're fine. It's not really there. You're not seeing that. And when you don't validate that for them, they start to stuff it down and they're afraid. And so it gets shut off. And that's how we all end up growing up with that shut off. We have shut off those extrasensory gifts that we have. People still get them though. You get a funny feeling about someone and you know that something isn't quite right with them or something, and it ends up being true. That's another extrasensory ability that you have. And when you start to utilize that and you start to believe yourself and you start to open that up, you'll really tap into that. So that's a good way to really start if you want to start honing in on those abilities. But kids just naturally have those and they use those. And I think kids are fascinating, and that is really part of the reason I work with kids. They show everything that they feel the second they feel it. They could be crying, laughing, and angry in a 90-second, all of the things. They feel all of the feelings, but they're honest. They don't really get lying yet. They do as they get a little bit older, but they just say things that they think and feel. And I appreciate that because I'm that way as well. So I think it's so cool that that kid could talk to his parents about it. And I think they were super, super religious and they were kind of horrified at it at first. I think it kind of changed their perception. And that's probably part of the reason why that child was allowed to see this past life, because then he like helped kind of, make a little more flexibility around the idea, and I think there's a reason for everything, as my teacher, Tracy St. Croix, as she always says, she's like, spirit doesn't waste a moment or an opportunity or a message. So when you get a message, it can be layered. There's a lot of layers in there. They'll use something and it could mean three different things. And I found that really to be true in a lot of things. So that's something to keep in mind too. So let's talk about when I do past life regressions. Okay. So when I do a past life regression, I am calling in your guides. I'm calling in your angels, extraterrestrial beings. I'm calling in all of these things and your higher self, obviously, to facilitate you on your journey today, right? That's what we'll say together. We will call them in and we're going to ask them to take you to the life that you most need to see today. Something that's going to help you on your journey, whatever that is, whatever you need. Your higher self is the higher aspect of yourself, right? I would picture you as like a spirit, just a ball of energy, right? Here's your higher self. Now, this is too much energy to go into this human body, right? So you fracture off pieces of that to live lives. So you could have like umpteen lives going on, or you could just have one. I don't know. Whatever the experience is that your higher self is having, it's going to be different for everyone. But you could be living past, present, future, all kinds of different lives at one time. I actually postulate sometimes, just talking out loud to my husband or whomever. I'm like, what if when you're seeing a life right now, you're seeing it as it's happening? You know what I mean? Like, we don't know. It's so fascinating and cool to think of that way. So we call in your guides, all of your big guns to help you, to take you, to show you something you need to see today, right? So when we go to this life that you get to view, you will walk you through it. I walk you through it. I ask you questions. We kind of look at it from a bunch of different angles. And then at the end, when you finally pass and move on, we go into a space that I like to call the spirit realm, where we will ask, what was the purpose of that life? And did you fill that purpose? Did you learn the lesson that you were meant to learn today or in this life, right? And then you'll get your answer, you'll see, and we'll ask, why were you shown this life today? And it'll tell you why. And usually you'll know even before then because you see the parallels as you're going through it. So it's really fascinating that way. And the cool thing is I'm not going to tell you what they are, but there's little things that people say that are super similar. There's wording that they use that is always really similar. And there's just things that are almost so close to the same, and they don't know it because I don't post those things. When I posted some of the clips of my sessions, but I don't put these things in there. So there's just things you learn as you go. And so those people are in the same spaces. Even though we view them a little differently, they always end up saying mostly the same things. So I think it's really fascinating in that way too. Let's see. Now I'm trying to think. There have been some really fun, cool, interesting past lives that I've taken people to. There was a girl that I worked with a few times, and I want to get a hold of her again because she gets into a deep state when we do the sessions. But she went to a life where she was a priestess in Greece. That's right. And she actually helped people. Apparently, when someone is going into the underworld after they would pass in this time, you know, or even still now, I don't know. When people believe it, that's where they go, I think. When they would be passing through the underworld, you would have to give some kind of token or a gift, like as like payment to cross the river Styx, I believe. I want to say I'd have to go back and read about it because I did read about it afterwards. But so when she crossed over, she would take the payments. And that was her job. And that was so fascinating to me. So I did look up more information on this later, and it was a belief at that time. And it was so cool. So I asked her the types of objects, and she would tell me, it could range from fruit sometimes to jewels to coins. It was kind of whatever they really could afford. It didn't really matter what it was. It was just more of the token of it. Probably an energetic thing is what I was kind of feeling from that. And so she had a strong connection with the energy of Hades, right? And that was really fascinating. I loved hearing about that. It actually made me go buy a book to read about it so that if I do another session with her, I can ask more appropriate questions. So that was really cool. There are lives where people are living, most of the lives we've lived are mundane and they're not very exciting, but there's always a message or a lesson that you learn in those lives. They're still as important as seeing a life where you're like a priestess or something. So they live a normal, mundane life. They got married, had kids, died happy, you know? That was their life and it was a good one. So then they go into the next, and that life was meant to learn, like, you learned unconditional love, and that was something your soul needed. So think about it as your soul living all of these lives in search of every emotion, every feeling, every situation. So if something bad happened to you, like many of the sessions I've done, people have been murdered in a past life. And I've been into one where I was murdered. But you took something from that. Sometimes your soul does hold on to trauma, and that is something that I will get to as well. But your soul knows and understands how that is now. So that is that's something that helps your soul, acquire more information, acquire more empathy. You have learned that specific lesson, you could say, right? And that is always fascinating to know about, right? You can also carry that trauma from life to life. And there's quite a few books out there by psychologists who did hypnotherapy, who started doing past life regressions because they found out like people were carrying trauma from past lifetimes into their current lifetime. And that was another episode on Unsolved Mysteries that really fascinated me too. It was a woman who, when she went into hypnosis, she went into a past life. And the hypnotist was like, "Whoa, I didn't know what was going on." I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch that because it was so cool. But anyways, that's kind of how they kind of discovered it. Um, you go into this past life and you can see where the trauma was. And sometimes you carry it on the specific part of your body where you were killed. You know what I mean? Like, you really can. And I told that story about Avalon before, and it was a physical manifestation on my body until I saw it and I released that. And now I haven't had issues with that spot on my back where I was stabbed to death. So it's really cool to see how I think and this is just me, like, having a hypothesis, okay? And this is just from learning through doing different past life regression sessions and even Reiki. I think that our soul carries all of this information, right? But in the spirit realm, you don't feel bad feelings. You're just carrying them. So when you come back into a physical body, I think it has physical manifestations that we don't anticipate in the spirit realm. So you're coming into this body to have a new life, but because of the traumatic way you died, shoot, 2 lives ago, 3 lives, you could carry it for multiple lifetimes by accident. If it traumatizes you that much, it stays in your subconscious mind, right? And so when you finally get in there and you see it and you're like, okay, let's release that now. We don't need that. You don't need that in this lifetime. It's not helping you progress. We're leaving it here. We leave it with the lifetime that it came from. And we send healing to those places. And people feel better. You really do. It's fascinating. Now, I'm not a doctor. I will always, definitely going to therapy and doing all of those things is always amazing. This type of energy work and energy healing, it's just another layer that I think people need to uncover. Because you can do all of the healthy things, you can do all of the therapy, and you might still have something missing. And something I personally learned in therapy, my therapist told me, he said there are 5 different areas of your life that you need to try to keep in balance. And when you have them in balance, your anxiety will be lowered. And spirituality was one of those. And when I was in therapy, I really realized how all of the other aspects of my life I mostly fulfilled, but the ones that were lacking were my own personal connection to my spirituality, to the creator, to whatever it is, and not taking time for myself to do nice things for myself. So that's when I started going to the gym, and I stopped feeling bad about doing things for myself, going somewhere by myself, telling my partner I need alone time. I'm gonna go do something by myself, doing something nice for myself occasionally, buying myself a nice shirt, buying myself like getting my nails done, getting my hair done. Just those small things that I do them mindfully, and they do help you feel better. So I really started exploring my own spirituality, which also led me to past life regression, which I did the mentorship program and then I had a past life regression. I am so glad I did that. It was so life changing, really. I think anytime you add in an energy healing type of anything into your life, you're opening yourself up to realizing that we don't know shit about nothing when it comes to the afterlife. We can have a basic, I have a basic construct in my mind of how I think it goes, but I'm more than open and willing to believing that that's fucking wrong. And I'm okay with that. I just know that the afterlife is so much better than how we get to all the crap we have to feel when we're here in this life. But let's see. So, any other past life stuff that I have explored. It's really, and I think I've said it before, but the coolest part about past life regressions is coming to realize you really don't just live this one life. People get to see things that they have experienced before. And the coolest thing is, and I always tell everybody this when I do a session with them. So you will go in to see this past life, right? You'll have sensations of, you can smell stuff, you know what the smell is, you're opening yourself up to all these extra senses, right? And you're seeing it in a different realm than the one that we are physically in, right? And now you've taken that wedge. So let's say maybe it was like this before for you. Now we've cracked open that subconscious a little bit, right? So now, even though we get through with the session, that is still open. You have that wedge open now. So you could be going about your day and bam, you have a memory, another something comes to you about this life that you saw or you lived, or maybe you're having flashes of other lives that you've lived. Opened up that connection, you can access it a little more easily. And I'm not surprised. I always tell people, I'm like, you may start, your psychic senses have been awoken. Like, if you want to call them psychic senses, I call them extrasensory abilities too, because, you know, every sense we have here has a flip side, you know, to the realm of the unseen, right? So you smell, you taste, you see, you hear, you feel, you have your like mind's eye. You know what I mean? Most people see stuff in their head. Some people don't, but it'd surprise you to know that sometimes when you get into this state where you do a past life regression, some people actually open that sense of. And it may not reawaken it right that day, but it could over time. And it's fascinating to know that. But you don't have to see to do a past life regression either. And that is called aphantasia, when you cannot visualize things in your mind. I have done sessions with people who have aphantasia, and they did have snippets come into their mind as we were doing the session. But when we do more of a sensory, like smells, taste, feelings, when we are getting you into that meditative state. Very cool. I can do those. It's so fun. I enjoy it. But yeah, so you can smell and taste and see and hear and feel things even when you are in this state, this meditative state, right? And it's so cool. I find it completely fascinating from the sessions that I have done for myself. I'll tell a personal story of the one of the lives that I went to was, I was like a mermaid type of creature, and I can still see it. I picture it in my mind. So a little bit about me. I do visualize in my head, but it isn't my strongest sense. My strongest sense is clairsentience. I feel things, not just feelings. It's like I feel information. It's very crazy and it's really hard to explain. But I've noticed the stronger the sense gets for me, the harder it is for me to use words to explain things, because I'm interpreting it as energy. I can feel it in my body and I understand what it means, but I can't put it into words sometimes. And it's very bizarre. And I'm really trying hard to work through this right now. So I could see a snippet of this creature. Like, I don't want to call it a creature, it was a being, right? In my head. And I could feel the scales on it. It almost felt like, like a lizard, how they have that rough kind of waterproof skin, but it was softer than that. It wasn't as coarse. And it was so cool because it was different shades of blue. There's a lot of blue and maybe a dark green in there. But the skin on some parts of it was very blue. I would compare it to a little bit like Avatar, but the eyes were not big. They were pretty small and a little more wide set. They weren't normal. They were a little, like a sea creatures are. And the nose was flatter. It was quite flat. Almost you couldn't even see it. Uh, and the mouth was not very big, a little bit smaller than like a human mouth. And most of them didn't have hair. I guess it was a choice. If you chose to want to do that, you could, or you didn't. I don't know why that was, but that's how it was. Let's see. And our hands were different. Our thumb was like a bit longer, uh, and the fingers weren't as high away from the thumb like this. They kind of started lower, but like I think there was only 4 fingers instead of 5. So there was just that extra one kind of gone, but they were like webbed, and it was not quite like webbed like a duck, but like it was more like, so you could swim better. And the fingers weren't as long, right? Really fascinating. It's really cool. I can still picture all of that. This one came through so strongly. I haven't had another session that came through as strong as this one. This was my personal experience being in hypnosis. That girl, Sarah, did an amazing job. I don't know if we just had such a good connection or what, but this one was so strong to me. And I don't usually visualize as well as feeling the environment out with my clairsentient sense, but in during her session I was seeing everything. And the coolest part was when I was swimming, I actually, like, how these types of creatures, like picture an otter swimming. I was swimming so fast, like even my human mind could not keep up with it. I was getting dizzy. I was like, whoa, man, this is getting trippy. So, and when you are swimming underwater for a while, you kind of get a stuffy nose a little bit. Not like stuffy, but it's like runny. It's like all of your sinuses are running. That's how it felt when I woke up. I felt like I had been underwater. Um, it was so cool, man. Like, this was the coolest session I have done. I also think I just have such a strong connection to this life. It's my higher self said this was one of my favorite lives that I lived. And so, anyways, I was like a healer of this community. So they would come to me, and I almost did a kind of a form of Reiki. And now that I'm saying that out loud, that's really interesting because I think I said in my other episode, when I started doing Reiki, I like took to it like a fish in the water. You know what I mean? Like I just felt, I just knew what I was doing. I just felt so easily connected to it. It's fascinating. But so I would do this type of healing with the, if you want to call them hands, whatever. But I think it was even more than that. I think it was helping that being get into the state where you allow healing to come. And that is, I think, part of what makes Reiki so important. And I'll do an episode on Reiki alone. But one of the biggest feelings like you'll get from Reiki is the feeling of relaxation. You will feel so relaxed. My first Reiki session that I had done on me, I slept. I felt so relaxed. It was really amazing. So, anyways, so I think it was like matching their energy to mine to like have healing come down to them. It's for them to heal themselves. It's more of a facilitating of the healing, right? The same thing. Very cool. It was like on this rock on the bottom of the water, but the water was so clear there. Like there wasn't shit floating around. It wasn't foggy. It wasn't gross. It's just sad. Now I'm just thinking about our ocean, and it was just pure glass. It just, there was nothing in the way of how to see things. So the sun would come down and the sun was pink. And the sun was pink because it had healing properties. So sometimes we would go lay up on the land and just bask in the sun a bit. And that was a healing and regeneration thing. But this rock that I had down at the bottom of the water there was, and everything was such a like, it was like so much blue. There's so much blue there. It's really fascinating. Blue and pink. That was like the color scheme, you know? But so yeah, they would lay on this rock and the sun would come down and I would just help, facilitate helping them heal. So that was my job for like a long time, hundreds of years. Because in this life, you got to live and choose when you wanted to go because they were higher dimensional beings there. I know it seems kind of crazy that an animal, aquatic being would, but they were. They did live simple lives, but they were way more connected to source energy, right? So I saw how we slept, and it was like there was like this big, almost like everything was rock there. There wasn't dirt. So it was like rock and water. And the rocks were like this gray blue. And it was like these little compartments were carved out, like, so it'd go in and come out, right? And you would just go in there and you would just lay down and sleep. And you just knew where your cubby, I'm calling it a cubby because that's kind of what it seems like to me, but you would just go in there and there was just so many of them just in the side of this rock that I saw. But I think they were just kind of all over and on this whole planet because this planet was a water planet. So you could go up, lay on the rocks, lay in the healing sun, and I don't think it was ever night. I think it was just you slept when you wanted to, and that was it. So, anyways, it, and just the swimming. It was the swimming when I would swim in that life. I can see it in when I close my eyes, and it was just so freeing. It just made me feel so free. And I don't think I had kids or a partner or anything in that life. And I just, when I got too old and my body couldn't swim anymore, that's when I decided it was time for me to go. And then when you do that, it was like everybody got in a circle around you and said their goodbyes, and then your spirit would go. But they could also see the spirit too. So then I don't know what they did with the bodies. I'm kind of curious about that now. But you know what they ate too? It was fascinating. So it almost looked like seaweed, but it had like seeds in it. And it was almost like aloe a little bit. You know how when you open an aloe plant and get the gel out? It was like seaweed, but then on the inside there was this gel and you would eat the gel, I guess. I guess maybe the whole thing. I don't know, but it was really fascinating. I I still can see it and like I hate the texture of that right now, and I am neurodivergent, if I didn't say that already, and textures are the bane of my existence. So thinking about some of these things, I am really a texture person. That's why like the skin, I could feel it and it was so soft and like rough, fascinating. And the hair, if they chose to have hair, it was almost like whiskers, like on like a walrus or something. And they would only grow like in the middle part of the head and they would just braid them if they got long. I know it's really weird, but I don't think I just chose not to have hair because I don't know. But I didn't feel it anyways when I saw. But yeah, fascinating stuff. It's so cool. Like I think it was a huge mind opener for me personally just to be like, my God, I lived on another planet. And when we went to my higher self and we connected with the higher self, I think they said it was an Arcturian water planet. And that was really cool. So I obviously went and researched that later because I gotta tell you, like, I have always loved alien stuff. I wasn't ever like really fascinated with it enough to research it, but I just accepted, like, duh, there's aliens. We're not the only fucking alive thing in this world. Looking around, that would have destroyed me. To know, like, if we were the only living things in this fucking universe or universes, that would have destroyed me. Cause damn. So, anyways, I just always just believed, like, duh, aliens are real. Duh. I always thought it was bizarre, the whole, like, why is the government trying so hard to cover it up? It seemed so dumb to me. As a kid, even, I'm like, why even lie? You can't even say that there isn't aliens because you haven't even fucking. We've been to like one fucking planet out of all of the planets, and you I just thought it was so fucking stupid. It's ignorant to say. And I tell my kids this all the time. And this is something that really fucking grates on me. Hello and welcome to my TED Talk, folks. I hate when scientists say that shit isn't possible because the fuck, you don't fucking know. Say it's not probable. Sure, possibly, probably wouldn't happen, but you don't fucking know. You don't know. There's all kinds of crazy shit that happens in this world, right? Miracles fucking happen. People have tumors 1 month and then they go and fucking meditate and get energy healing and then they come back and that shit's gone. That is fucking crazy. Call it whatever you want, but it isn't impossible. That fucking grates on me. So I always tell my kids, because they'll ask me, are unicorns real? And I'm like, hey, I'm going to tell you this. I've never seen one. Nobody's ever caught one on camera. But that doesn't mean I can't definitively say that shit isn't real. Because if I said that it wasn't real just because I haven't seen it, there'd be a lot of fucking things that aren't fucking real then, folks. Because guess what? I've never been to London. I've never physically seen Big Ben. But it's obviously fucking there. I'm just saying, like, you can't just say shit isn't real just because you haven't seen it. We haven't even explored, like, what, 95% of the ocean? I can't tell my kids mermaids aren't real. We don't even fucking know. There could be megalodons swimming around down there. Honestly, that terrifies the fuck out of me. But I'm not going to tell my kids stuff isn't real just because we haven't seen it or caught it on camera. Because we know aliens are real. And I mean, I'll get to that another time. But, you know, we most people haven't physically seen one with their own eyes, but we know that they're out there, right? And we can call them aliens, extraterrestrials, beings from another planet, what have you. It really grates on me when I read articles and people are like, no, that is impossible. No, no, no. No, you can say it's not possible for you then, but it sure as fuck can be possible for anybody else. And I'll tell my kids to believe whatever they want because, I've never seen, well, I think I've seen things that are like fairies. So that's probably a bad example. But the unicorn thing again, I haven't personally seen one myself. Okay. But I believe that shit could be fucking out there. Why the hell not? Someone had to think of it. They put it in a book, they put it somewhere, and people still talk about it. So, anyways, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anything is possible. We don't know. And taking people into these past lives where they see fairies, where they were a fairy, where they see unicorns, where they see leprechauns, where they interact with the spirit realm, where they're interacting with energies of goddesses and fucking who knows what else. It's so cool. I love my job. I get to do the impossible things. And it's really just sad a little bit that more people don't believe in these things or at least be open minded to it, right? It's okay if you don't believe in unicorns, like Bigfoot. Yeah, there's a good one. It's okay that you don't believe in Bigfoot, but you can't definitively say there isn't when hundreds of people a year, and what, like a month ago, a ton of people in Ohio were making reports of seeing Bigfoot. So, people are seeing them. I haven't personally. I also live in the prairies, and fucking Bigfoot can't hide there. So I bet he ain't chilling here. But I understand that I haven't seen it. But I'm open to the possibility of it being real. So I just don't shut anything down because I'm like, hell, I don't fucking know. People see the Loch Ness monster, every year or every however many years, they see something in there. They believe something's in there. And I can't say, no, it's not real. But, I'm open to it. I'm just kind of open to whatever. I'm just rolling. I mean, if you guys are living in the world we're living in now, there is some fucking wonky ass shit happening. We're seeing orbs all over. People are. Even I saw one in my house, and I thought this was really fascinating too. I don't know if you've heard of Chris Bledsoe, but he made this prediction. And hey, it's, coming up on Easter, and I've been pretty excited about this, a little bit low key. He said that when the star of Regulus is in the gaze of the Sphinx, and it's like blue, when the blue star of Regulus, when the red, maybe he said the red star of Regulus, I don't know. He said the star of Regulus will be like in the view of the Sphinx, right? The world is gonna come into a new knowledge. And that alignment is coming up, what, next Monday? Like over the weekend or something? So I think it was like supposed to be like some alien knowledge. I don't know. I'm open to any fucking knowledge at this point. I just feel like people have become so rigid and closed minded that we need a fucking new knowledge. We need it, man. Please. Please beam me up. Where's my beam me up shirt? This place sucks. I'm excited. But Chris Bledsoe also talked about seeing all these orbs. And recently I just was watching some of his like videos about him talking about orbs. And I was like, my fucking orb I saw in my house, he would see orbs in his house. And I was like, holy shit, that's cool. So maybe I don't feel like such a fucking kook now. Well, still a little bit. Still a little bit, guys. It's a weird time when you become open-minded to shit. People think you're just a weirdo. So, hey, if you're a weirdo like me, you are welcome here. Please come hang out. I like talking about these things because they're fucking off the wall. They're weird, and I see it and interact with a lot of weird stuff. Doing, the jobs that I do and working with energy. It's a crazy time. Even earlier today, I went into my grandma's room and I was giving her her pills and stuff. And I was like, I heard a whisper in my ear. And I was like, did you say something? And she was like, what? Because she can't hear anything. So she doesn't usually whisper because she can't hear anything. And I was like, I heard a whisper. And she's like, oh, someone's talking to you. She's like, Mom, are you around? Well, I don't know. This didn't sound like her mom. So I'm not sure. Kind of weird though. Funny side quest of a ghost story. So my husband came in our room this past weekend and I did not feel good. There's a stomach stuff going through the house. My kids have both been sick. So I was in bed early. My stomach was just killing me. And he's like, pops his head in. He's like, you need to sage the house tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. And he closed the door. And I'm like, hey, why? Why? Come back. Why? And then I forgot about it. And then he comes back and he's like, I heard a growling sound or something, or it sounded like someone clearing their throat. And he like showed me where, and I'm like, okay, um, I don't feel anything bad. Like, I don't feel anything bad in the house. That isn't my experience. But he was so bent out of shape about it. He was like, and I was like, well, Grandma just saw a dog, like a ghost dog in her room, and I felt it too. I was like, maybe the dog. You piss off the ghost dog in the house now, man? He did not like that. He's like, I don't want anything hanging out here. And I'm like, buddy, like, he hates when I call him buddy. I was like, all of grandma's siblings are here all the time. Her mom, her dad, like, probably her friends. She's got a long list of ex-husbands who have passed on. Like, man, there's a lot of stuff hanging around here. And none of it is bad because I don't allow bad stuff in the house. I put up, like, I've told you guys, energetic protections. I got them all over the house. I do that once a day. Like, it only takes like 30 seconds. You just imagine like a ball of light around your house or a pyramid of light or however you want to do it. Just protect your house, protect your energy, right? And I'm like, there's nothing bad here. Like, there just isn't. I don't feel anything bad or scary in the house. So I think when you when you're sensitive, which he is, and he doesn't want to admit it, some people get really scared because they have experiences that they can't explain. But instead of being afraid, like, open yourself up to it a little bit and feel through it. Like, does it feel bad? Or are you just afraid because you don't understand it? Because, fear isn't going to be helpful in that type of situation. Anywho, I did sage the house. There's literally, I don't feel anything except for that whispering in my ear. But again, I didn't feel it was bad. I felt like it was trying to tell me something, but I was thinking about something else and I didn't quite catch what it said. So, anywho, reincarnation is a really fun subject. And I think that I should do another episode because I could tell so many stories. It's cool to explore these past lives with people. And the best part is, like, their reaction to it is so wholesome. Some of the lives were so fucking cool, even though they weren't like super exciting or crazy. I felt this such a good energy come from it. And just knowing that it was going to help those people through something made it so much better. So, if you want to book a past life regression with me, you certainly can. You go to my website, www.celestialguidanceqh.com. You could do meditations on your own too and explore it. It's a fun and moving experience. I have done a few and I find them to be amazing, truly amazing. So, and I do record them and then so you guys can listen to them. And something I learned from another BQH practitioner online was go back and listen to your recorded sessions because the healing that takes place when you do the session is great. But every time you listen to it, you do that healing again. So I'm like, hell yeah, I gotta go listen to mine again and get that healing again because it's so cool. So, anyways, guys, thanks for being here today. Let me know. Have you done a past life regression? Tell me your cool stories. Fucking love them. People were messaging me on TikTok, which, by the way, if you want to go to my TikTok, I haven't posted there in a while because, well, I took a break for a while and I was taking other classes and doing other things. And then I don't know, I was like, TikTok, is it going to be here? Is it not going to be here? I didn't fucking know. So I was like, not really dedicating a lot of time to it as it was. But if you want to go, my TikTok handle is, I think, Tabby Marie 18. Let me check quick. Tabby Marie 18. Yeah. Okay. That's my picture. I do have really big blonde curly hair. And at one of these episodes, you will see it. But usually when I'm working during the week, I have my hair in braids because having curly hair is a lot to manage. It gets really crazy. And with kids, babies especially, they like to grab your hair and chew on it and all kinds of really gross and good stuff. Anyways, so yeah, I'll be back next week. Maybe sooner. I don't know. Maybe I'll do something for Easter this weekend. And stay weird, guys. And I'll talk to you soon.